30 miles per year. Casablanca generates 32% of the nation's GDP, and the Strait of Gibraltar, just 9 miles of water, makes this country one of the most strategically important places on Earth. Morocco looks timeless. It isn't, because Morocco is changing faster than anyone expected. In the next 40 minutes, you're going to see Morocco the way most documentaries won't show you. Not just the beauty, but the tension. Not just the tradition, but the economics. We're going into the Sahara, but we're talking about why it's growing. We're walking through Marrakech, but we're examining what tourism is actually doing to these cities. We're visiting the blue streets of Chefchaouen, and we're asking if Morocco is selling you an aesthetic that never really existed. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Morocco may be Africa's most strategically important country, and why its next 20 years will define whether it becomes a regional powerhouse or a cautionary tale about climate, tourism, and identity. This is Morocco, not the one you think you know, the Sahara. Golden sand, camel silhouettes, sunsets that look photoshopped. But here's the temperature in Merzouga in July: 11.6 degrees Celsius during the day, 50 degrees Celsius at night. That's a 6-degree swing in 12 hours. The Sahara doesn't care about your camera. It's one of the most hostile environments on the planet, and it's getting bigger. Every year, the Sahara expands southward by about 48 kilometers. Desertification driven by climate change, overgrazing, and water depletion is consuming farmland across North Africa at a rate scientists are still trying to measure accurately. Morocco's southern oases, places like Zagora, Rissani, and the Draa Valley, are drying up. Communities that have lived here for centuries are abandoning their homes. Nomadic Amazigh families who once herded livestock across these plains are migrating to cities because the land can no longer sustain them. The dunes you see in travel videos, they're not static. They move. They bury roads. They swallow wells. This isn't poetry, it's geology. And for Morocco, it's an existential threat. Because the Sahara isn't just a tourist attraction, it's a border, a buffer. A massive stretch of territory that separates Morocco from the political instability of the Sahel region to the south. But it's also a symbol. When European colonizers drew maps of Africa in the 1880s, they looked at the Sahara and saw emptiness. They saw nothing worth claiming. So they carved Morocco into Spanish and French protectorates, leaving the desert as a vague, uncontrolled frontier. That legacy still shapes this country. The Western Sahara, a disputed territory south of Morocco's recognized borders, remains one of Africa's longest-running conflicts. Morocco claims it. The Polisario Front, backed by Algeria, claims it. The UN calls it a non-self-governing territory. And underneath all that sand, phosphate deposits worth billions. So when you watch a sunset in the Sahara, you're not just watching nature, you're standing on a geopolitical fault line. But here's the thing. Morocco's real power doesn't come from sand, it comes from snow. Drive 3 hours north from the Sahara, and you'll hit something most people don't expect: snow. The Atlas Mountains stretch 1,500 miles across Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. But Morocco has the highest peaks. Toubkal rises to 13,601 feet, and in winter, it's covered in snow. This isn't just scenery, this is survival. Because Morocco is a semi-arid country, it doesn't have major rivers like the Nile or the Congo. It doesn't have vast freshwater lakes. What it does have is snowmelt from the Atlas. Every spring, as temperatures rise, the snow on these peaks melts and flows down into rivers. The Drea, the Ziz, the Er Arbia. These rivers feed the valleys. They irrigate the farms. They fill the reservoirs that supply cities like Marrakech, Fez, and Casablanca. Without the Atlas, Morocco collapses. But the snow is disappearing. Over the last 30 years, snowfall in the Atlas has decreased by nearly 40%. Ski resorts that used to operate reliably, like Ukiameden, Africa's highest ski station, now struggle to open. Springs that once flowed year-round are running dry by August, and the people who live in these mountains, they're feeling it first. The Atlas is home to Morocco's Amazigh population, often called Berbers, though many reject that term. Amazigh means free people, and they've lived in these mountains for thousands of years, long before Arabs arrived in the 7th century. Their language, Tamazight, wasn't officially recognized by the Moroccan government until 2011. For decades, Amazigh culture was marginalized, suppressed, treated as folklore rather than identity. But that's shifting. Today, Tamazight is taught in schools. Road signs are trilingual: Arabic, French, Tamazight. There's a growing pride in Amazigh heritage, especially among younger generations who see it as a way to resist cultural homogenization. Still, the economics are brutal. Many Amazigh families in the High Atlas survive on subsistence farming, barley, almonds, walnuts. But as water becomes scarce and soil erodes, young people are leaving. They move to Marrakech, Casablanca, Rabat, looking for work in construction, hospitality, anything. The mountains are emptying. And when the mountains empty, the culture fragments. Because here's the paradox: Morocco's tourism industry loves Amazigh aesthetics. The carpets, the jewelry, the architecture. Riads in Marrakech are decorated with Amazigh patterns. Hotels in the Atlas offer authentic Berber experiences. But the economic benefits rarely reach the communities themselves. So you get this strange, dynamic urban Morocco profits from Amazigh culture, while rural Amazigh communities struggle to survive. And all of it depends on water that's running out. But if the Atlas is Morocco's lifeline, the coast is its economic engine. Morocco is the only African country with coastlines on both the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. That sentence alone explains centuries of geopolitical tension. Start with the Strait of Gibraltar. It's 9 miles wide at its narrowest point. On one side, Spain, Europe, NATO. On the other, Morocco, Africa, the Arab world. Every day, 300 ships pass through the strait. Oil tankers from the Gulf, container ships from Asia, naval vessels from a dozen countries. This is one of the world's most important choke points. If the strait closes, global shipping reroutes around Africa, adding weeks and billions of dollars to supply chains. So Morocco's position here? It's not just symbolic, it's strategic, and they've capitalized on it. In 2007, Morocco opened Tanger Med, a massive port complex near Tangier, just miles from the strait. Today, it's the largest port in Africa and the Mediterranean, handling over 9 million containers annually. For context, that's more than Algeciras in Spain, more than Genoa in Italy. Tanger Med connects Morocco to global trade networks in a way no other African nation can match. Renault builds cars here. Airbus assembles aircraft components here. Chinese firms have invested billions in logistics hubs. This isn't the Morocco of souks and spices. This is industrial Morocco. But the Atlantic side tells a different story. Morocco's Atlantic coast, stretching from Tangier down to Dakhla, is one of the richest fishing zones in the world, thanks to cold currents and nutrient upwelling. Sardines, mackerel, octopus. Morocco exports seafood to Europe, Asia, the Middle East. The fishing industry employs over 600,000 people, and it's a critical part of the economy. But it's also contentious. European fishing fleets, especially Spanish and Portuguese, have operated in Moroccan waters for decades under agreements that critics call exploitative. Morocco grants access to its fish in exchange for aid and trade deals. But local fishermen say the quotas are unfair, that foreign trawlers are depleting stocks faster than they can regenerate. And then there's the Western Sahara issue again. Much of Morocco's richest fishing waters lie off the coast of Western Sahara, the disputed territory. The EU has signed fishing agreements covering these areas, but international courts have ruled that Morocco can't legally control resources there without consent from the Sahrawi people. It's a legal and ethical mess. But economically, Morocco keeps fishing. Because for all the talk of heritage and tradition, Morocco's economy is ruthlessly pragmatic, and nowhere is that clearer than when you look at the cities. Not the ones tourists romanticize, the ones they actually run. Let's talk about Fez first. Fez El Bali. The Old Medina is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's one of the largest car-free urban zones in the world. The alleyways are so narrow that donkeys are still the primary mode of transport for goods. And at its heart is the University of Al-Qarawiyyin. Founded in 859 AD by Fatima al-Fihri, a wealthy merchant's daughter, it's recognized by UNESCO and Guinness World Records as the oldest continuously operating degree-granting university in the world. Not Oxford, not Bologna, Fez. For over 1,000 years, scholars came here to study Islamic jurisprudence, mathematics, astronomy, medicine. This was a center of intellectual life when Europe was in the Dark Ages. But walk through Fez today and you'll notice something. It's crumbling. The Riyadh's traditional courtyard homes are collapsing. The tilework is chipped. The plaster is flaking. Entire sections of the Medina are held together by wooden beams propping up walls that should have been repaired decades ago. Preservation costs money, and Fez doesn't have it. Wealthy Moroccans have moved to the Ville Nouvelle, the modern part of the city built by the French. Tourists come for a day, take photos, and leave. There's no economic engine sustaining the old city, so it decays. And then there are the tanneries. The Chouara Tannery in Fez is one of the most photographed sites in Morocco. Hundreds of stone vessels filled with dyes, yellow, red, brown, white. Men standing in the vats, treating leather by hand using methods unchanged for centuries. It's visually stunning. It also smells like death. The tanning process uses pigeon feces, cow urine, and quicklime to soften hides. The chemicals are toxic. Workers develop respiratory issues, skin conditions, chemical burns. Most of them don't have protective equipment. Tour guides hand you a sprig of mint to hold under your nose. But that doesn't change the fact that this timeless tradition is also an unregulated, hazardous workplace that no Western country would tolerate. And nobody talks about that. Now let's go to Marrakech. Jema El Fna. The main square is chaos. Snake charmers, henna artists, juice vendors, acrobats, storytellers. At night, food stalls appear and the entire plaza fills with smoke, noise, light. It's electrifying. But here's what tourists never see. The snake charmers are often fined or harassed by authorities because animal rights groups have pressured the government. The henna artists use aggressive sales tactics because they're competing with dozens of others. The juice vendors charge tourists triple the local price. And the square itself? It's surrounded by luxury hotels and high-end riads owned by foreign investors. French, British, American, who bought crumbling properties for cheap in the early 2000s and renovated them into boutique accommodations. Marrakech has become a city where the wealthy live behind high walls while locals work service jobs. Tourism accounts for nearly 20% of Morocco's GDP. Marrakech alone sees over 3 million visitors annually, but economic benefits are unevenly distributed. A riad owner makes thousands per week. A henna artist makes 10 on a good day, and the pressure is unsustainable. Water usage in Marrakech has skyrocketed. Hotels, pools, golf courses in the desert. Meanwhile, local neighborhoods face shortages. Infrastructure strains, traffic worsens. Marrakech is being loved to death. And the illusion of timelessness? It's curated, maintained, performed. Because the real Morocco, the one feeding families, building infrastructure, generating GDP, doesn't look like this. It looks like Casablanca. Casablanca is not romantic, it's not medieval, it's not charming. It's a port city of 4 million people. And it generates 32% of Morocco's entire GDP. This is where the money is. The port of Casablanca handles industrial imports, steel, machinery, electronics. The city is Morocco's financial capital banks, insurance companies, stock exchange. It's also a manufacturing hub: textiles, pharmaceuticals, processed foods. If Marrakech is the face Morocco shows tourists, Casablanca is the engine that actually runs the country. But it has its own contradictions. The Hassan II Mosque sits right on the Atlantic coast. Its minaret rises 689 feet, making it the tallest religious structure in the world. The prayer hall can hold 25,000 people. The courtyard can hold another 80,000. It cost $800 million to build, funded largely by public donations during the reign of King Hassan II in the 1990s. It's an architectural marvel, Italian marble, granite columns, a retractable roof, lasers that shoot from the top of the minaret toward Mecca at night. But many Moroccans resented it. The funds were raised through a quasi-mandatory donation system where citizens were pressured to contribute. People still argue whether that money should have gone to schools, hospitals, housing. It's a symbol of both pride and excess, and it sits in a city where youth unemployment hovers around 25%. Walk through Casablanca's working-class neighborhoods, Sidi Momen, Hey Mohammadi, and you'll see the other side. Concrete apartment blocks, informal markets, young men standing on street corners because there's nothing else to do. Morocco's population is young, median age is 29. But the economy isn't generating enough jobs to absorb them. University graduates end up working in call centers or cafes. Engineers drive taxis. The brain drain is real. Tens of thousands of educated Moroccans leave for Europe, the Gulf, or North America every year. And the government knows this is a ticking time bomb. In 2011, during the Arab Spring, Morocco saw mass protests. Not as violent as Libya or Syria, but significant. People demanded constitutional reform, anti-corruption measures, economic opportunity. King Mohammed VI responded by pushing through a new constitution that technically reduced his powers, though in practice, he still holds enormous authority. But the underlying frustrations haven't been resolved. Morocco is stable compared to its neighbors. Algeria has political turmoil. Libya is fractured. Tunisia is in economic crisis. But stability isn't the same as prosperity. And Casablanca embodies that tension. It's modern, it's functional, it works, but it doesn't inspire, unless you're talking about economics. Now let's talk about the blue city, Chefchaouen. Every wall painted shades of blue, narrow streets, flower pots, cats everywhere. It's one of the most Instagrammed places in Morocco. But here's a question nobody asks. Why is it blue? The popular story is that Jewish refugees who fled the Spanish Inquisition in the 15th century painted the city blue to symbolize heaven and spirituality. Sounds poetic, except there's no historical evidence for that. Some scholars say the blue paint keeps mosquitoes away. Others say it keeps buildings cool. Another theory is that it was a 1930s initiative to attract tourists, basically an early marketing campaign. The truth? Nobody knows for sure, but it doesn't matter, because Chefchaouen has fully embraced the aesthetic. Every few years, residents repaint their walls. They maintain the blue because tourists expect it. Travel bloggers post photos. Instagram influencers do shoots. Hotels market it as Morocco's hidden gem. But Chefchaouen isn't hidden anymore. Tourism exploded here in the 2010s. The town population, 45,000, now sees hundreds of thousands of visitors annually. Hotels and guest houses have proliferated. Restaurants cater to foreign tastes. Shops sell mass-produced handmade crafts imported from China. And locals? Many have mixed feelings. Tourism brings money, but it also brings noise, waste, rising prices. Young people see opportunity in hospitality, but resent that their town has become a backdrop for other people's photos. This is the paradox of cultural tourism. Visitors come for authenticity, but their presence transforms the place into a performance. Chefchaouen isn't alone in this. All across Morocco, towns are rebranding themselves. Essaouira markets itself as the Windy City, attracting kite surfers. Ouarzazate calls itself the Hollywood of Africa because studios film there. Morocco is selling itself as an experience, and it's working. But at what cost? When culture becomes a commodity, what happens to the people who actually live it? Let's slow down for a moment and talk about something more fundamental. What does it mean to be Moroccan? Because this is a country where identity is layered. There's the Arab influence, language, Islam, political structures. There's the Amazigh Foundation, indigenous to North Africa for millennia. There's the French colonial legacy, still visible in language, education, bureaucracy. There's the Spanish influence in the north, and there's the sub-Saharan African connection. Morocco has always been a crossroads between the Mediterranean and the Sahel. So, identity here isn't simple. But food is a language everyone speaks. Tagine, the slow-cooked stew made in the conical clay pot, is Morocco's most famous dish. Lamb with prunes, chicken with preserved lemons and olives, kefta with eggs. But the tagine isn't just a cooking method, it's physics. The conical shape creates a convection cycle. As the stew heats, steam rises to the top of the cone, cools, condenses, and drips back down, continuously basting the ingredients. It's a closed system that requires minimal water, critical in a dry climate. This is design born from necessity. Then there's couscous. Every Friday, traditionally the holy day of the week, Moroccan families gather for couscous. It's steamed semolina served with vegetables, meat, and broth. Making couscous properly takes hours. Rolling the semolina by hand, steaming it multiple times, fluffing it between rounds. Most families don't do it from scratch anymore. They buy pre-rolled couscous from the store. But the ritual remains. Friday couscous is family, it's continuity, it's identity. And then there's mint tea. The phrase Moroccan whiskey is a joke locals make, but mint tea is serious business. The tea is Chinese gunpowder green tea. The mint is fresh, mentha spicata specifically. And the sugar? A lot of it. Sometimes half the glass is sugar. The pouring technique matters. The teapot is held high, and the tea is poured from a height to aerate it, creating foam on top. Proper foam means proper tea. Offering tea is hospitality. Refusing tea is rude. But beyond food, there's faith. Morocco is 99% Muslim, and most practice Maliki Islam, a relatively moderate school of Sunni jurisprudence. The country also has a strong Sufi tradition, which emphasizes mysticism, poetry, music. The king holds the title Commander of the Faithful, positioning himself as both a political and religious leader. This gives him enormous authority. Criticizing the king is illegal. Criticizing Islam is illegal. But within those boundaries, there's more flexibility than in places like Saudi Arabia. Alcohol is available. Nightclubs exist in major cities. Women don't have to wear hijab, though many do. And the choice is often influenced by class, geography, and personal belief. Morocco walks a tightrope, traditional enough to maintain legitimacy with conservative populations, modern enough to attract tourists and foreign investment. But that balance is fragile, and the next 20 years will test it. So what is Morocco becoming? Let's look at what they're building. In the Sahara, near Ouarzazate, sits the Noor Solar Complex, one of the largest concentrated solar power plants in the world. It covers 6,178 acres. It generates 580 megawatts of electricity. At night, molten salt storage keeps the plant running even when the sun sets. Morocco imports 90% of its energy. So this plant is part of a bigger strategy. Reduce dependence on foreign oil and gas, position Morocco as a leader in renewable energy, and eventually export clean power to Europe via undersea cables. It's ambitious, and it's working. Morocco now generates over 40% of its electricity from renewables, solar, wind, hydro. They're on track to hit 52% by 2030. For a developing country with no oil reserves, this is remarkable.